Some channeled words about tyranny. There is a particular dynamic which occurs when a totalitarian government takes shape. This is something that happens time and time again across the universe, and is by no means a dynamic which solely takes place on Earth. There have been many star systems where this has taken place at both a micro and macro level. But one has to ask themselves, why does it take shape in the first place? It takes shape because humans do not claim their inner power and their sovereignty. Most humans who are awake realize this. But what we would like to talk to you about is how to stop tyranny, because this is something that frustrates a huge amount of you. Well, most people are aware of this, at least some core level. But how do you stop it, as it is the current situation on Earth, or part of the current situation on Earth? Sometimes you have to become somewhat cunning. You have to realize that to stop it, you have to delve into a psychology that most people don't always understand. The question is, why do people want to create a tyranny in the first place? Dark souls, if you will, want to create a tyranny because the light in their souls have been completely extinguished. That is the only way that one would have to justify that amount of control over other people. They brought me to the word justification. It said that a tyrannist wants to exert over other people, and it's like a poison that takes over their mind. When they think they are justified in something that they are absolutely not justified in, the tyrannist begins to think that they are completely justified in what they do. Yes, it is true that there are overlords that want the tyranny, a dark black cloud, if you will, over top of them. But what happens is that in their own minds they become very justified. The whole tyranny versus freedom is such a huge theme in the universe. Now, when one of these battles occurs, a lot of forces flock to manipulate and change the outcome of the battle. Some are nefarious, some are good, but some people who watch this already know this. So let us get to some words of wisdom as how to stop a tyranny. Some of this may surprise our vehicle, and she may have not thought of it before. The first image I got was that of a person or a group of people had to create a particular energy field within themselves. When a person's sovereign will is attacked, something happens to them at a core spiritual, emotional, and also physical level. And also with the recent cocoa and all the issues surrounding the cocoa, I'm speaking in code as not to trigger the YouTube algorithm. A lot of people who rightly understand what has occurred feel that they have been attacked on a core level, and it is very true that they have been attacked on a core spiritual and emotional level. He described an exercise that someone could do, which is to take the part that is attacked. He says it doesn't really matter if you get it right, that you get it exactly right. It's just that you get the general intention behind the exercise, which is for most people the root chakra. It affects other chakras as well, even the heart chakra. But you need to start at the root chakra, because an attack on a person's sovereignty attacks and attaches there first. And take that and intend that you rain power into yourself. You could use a red color or any other color that you feel is right, but it is generally a red vibration. And intend that you take your power back. You can say whatever affirmation comes to mind, but some examples are, I claim my sovereignty now. No one and no government will ever truly take away me from my source and my source of power, and the light always aligns with truth eventually. So I claim my sovereignty now. No one and no government will ever truly take from me away from source and my source of power. The light always aligns with truth eventually. Then he said one of the most important things to do with this oppressive governments is to align with groups. So you're working on the individual level, but then you're also working on a more, collective level. He says it is very important, but it's also the tricky part, because the dark global controllers like to separate in groups also. People can get very much into an us versus them mentality, as this is the main way the dark forces use to control other people, breaking down people into us versus them groups. So for the whole cocoa issue, they have really, really, really tapped into a wellspring of emotional pain in the human psychology, because both groups are concerned with the root chakra issue in terms of safety, but one is concerned with physical safety, death basically, but the other group isn't concerned with emotional safety in a way, because one group is afraid of death, and then the other group is concerned with the absolute and total emotional pain with being subsumed with an outer force of control. It is very tricky, because both sides can be quite entrenched and convinced that they are right. I asked him to clarify why there are two groups of people on Earth. He said it wasn't really important for now, but he might get to it later. He wanted to get back to the band together in groups thing and how to do that more effectively in the present day circumstances. With the present day circumstances, some people wanted government control to keep themselves safe, so they're perfectly fine with government control, where others saw the definite and obvious threats of government control. A question came into my mind. Is there a way to make people who are not aware of the definite threat of government control more aware of this? He said that humans are emotional creatures. You have to think in terms of which emotional buttons to push in a person to make them understand. He said that most people are emotional beings. Humans are like that. It's actually quite rare to find a human who comes from a completely logical place. It's actually one of the things that confounds some alien species, the absolute emotionality of some beings. And it's actually something that defines the shades of what you would call otherworldly species. Some are very emotional, others are logical, while others have a speck and a flavor, or a speck in the flavor in the middle. He said that to speak to a mandate pusher, if you will, about the threat of government control, think of the word, or utilize the word attack. Remind someone who is, shall we say, fully aligned with government control, what is it like to be attacked by the government. He said that this is because of one of the human's core fear is attack, because it links with a person's core fear of death. So you could remind someone of some of the things that out of control governments have done in the past that have been particularly attacking, shall we say. So if you do this, you might have the chance of hijacking their mind back. You can't just say the government did this, but remind them of a particular attacking action that the government took. Everyone knows what it is like to be attacked on a core level, so when you speak in those terms, you have a chance of reminding someone at a core level of the true dangers of an out-of-control government. He told me that anytime there's a core issue and a lot of buzz around a core issue, there's a tendency for humans to create a hive mind and a concurrent energy field that actually takes a particular form. This definitely occurs on the etheric planes, or upper planes, and creates a sort of buzzing etheric being. He said this is very important for everyone not to be manipulated. He said in block letters, everyone is being manipulated. Even those who are awake to the various levels of control and the, shall we say, spiritual aspects of what's happening on the planet. He said it is good to take a step back every day, not only because it helps one's mental health, but it also helps break the bonds of unconsciousness that creates a mass hive mind on the etheric levels. And then getting back to the group thing, he said it is very important to gather in groups and create social cohesiveness in whatever way you can. He said that the Dark Ones are always trying to break down social cohesiveness on both a large public level by manipulating people who are in the limelight to do certain things. But he's actually seen dark beings manipulate very small spiritual group gatherings at an extremely micro level, like meetup groups, like a very small level. The best groups are ones that are always trying to elevate themselves and speak truth and create strength and positivity and a sense of unity. He says that in the case of anti-government control groups, there is a problem created because people are running into people who are very angry and very scared all the time. He said that if you were to start a spiritual group that is focused on human sovereignty, always focus again and again and again on very high-end values. These high-end values will elevate the group and cause a shift in mass consciousness. The most important are, at least in this situation, truth, sovereignty, inner strength and power, and an all-encompassing sense of love for humanity. He said that the more that these values are amplified, the more they will eventually subsume lower energies like fear. He said that insults never work. They are tempting, but they never work. But he said that finding people's psychological pinch points to help them understand the truth of an issue is something that does work. At least sometimes, but not always. He says, be smart, be cunning, but in an integrous way. He said that his, getting someone who does not understand the dangers of government control to sort of reimagine being attacked at a core level sometimes even a physical level, not to re-traumatize them, but to understand the dangers of the government will help. He said he doesn't want to be misunderstood. He does not mean that people should actually traumatize people with past and present examples, but just to get people to understand at the core level of dangers of government control, just enough to have people understand, right, to sort of trigger that memory inside of them of what it is like to be attacked at a core level. And he said that 1984 is a very good book, and it really, really added something beneficial to the psychological zeitgeist of the planet, because people read it and they understand it at a very core base level of the danger of the book that the book illustrates. And he says that all artwork in books can have this kind of effect. And I asked him to describe the situation going on in the world, perhaps with the Freedom Convoy or otherwise connected to the Freedom Convoy, the fight against a mandate, in a way that is helpful to me and whoever listens to this. He says, whenever you feel an attack on your freedom, focus on the feelings that it is creating in you. Really become conscious of it. And whenever you are attacked in this way, do the chakra strengthening exercise he suggested earlier. He says you can do whatever comes natural, but do something that you intuitively know will strengthen your spirit, your root chakra, and give you a sense of sovereignty. He says, for example, if you cannot go to a restaurant because you haven't gotten the cocoa treatment, do something like create a meal that is extra delicious, more delicious that you would taste in a restaurant. It's a way to strengthen yourself emotionally, and also to be kind to yourself as well. He says, and also when you feel attacked in this way, connect with people who feel the same way, and intend that you pull your collective energies together. This is already happening naturally, that pools of consciousness naturally align for both good and bad, but it is always advantageous to sharpen your intentionality in any way that you can. He says that getting together in groups is advantageous, and that high intentional group meditations that focus on love are considered a cliche in the spiritual community, but they actually work profoundly. He got back to what was happening to the world and said that the world is a stage, and whatever is happening always happens on the etheric realm before it happens in reality. It's the battle between two energies. No matter what happens in the world, remember, it is only a battle between energies. He says that for some people, it is advantageous to think of what is happening in the world as a game, not in a way to lessen or make light of that, like the suffering on the world, but to create some distance from it. He said this would help some people, not all, but some would be helped by this attitude. And he says one of your Canadian freedom fighters, which I don't want to name because I don't want to trigger the algorithm, really got it right when he focused on bringing people together. He said he may seem clumsy and obnoxious to some, but he really gets it right at a core level. And with strength and power, and really focusing on bringing people together. And he is very cunning, but in a way that gets results. And he says that the dark side uses cunning and manipulation all the time. So if you're from the light side and have good intentions for humanity, do not be afraid to use these tactics as well, because sometimes the light side is too good and does not need to be afraid of using tactical maneuvers. He then added that some sections of the light side do use tactical maneuvers, but that the love and light community can sometimes be weak and needs to be more brash and unafraid, but also with an eye for cohesion and balance as much as is possible. He ended with, it is all a balancing act, and I hope that you take in these different elements and ideas contained within these ideas with a dose of common sense and always a fundamental integrity. He then added that some people are very concerned about the ultimate ending point of this. And he says that from his perspective, it looks promising. He says there are going to be tons of twists and turns, and it is going to be anything but straight and linear. At times it might be scary, but when it is scary on an emotional level, try to ride ahead of the fear and see the light at the end of this. He said full-out tyranny will not win in the ultimate end. He said that tyranny has definitely won in different timelines, and some of you have a remembering of this, but it does not look like this will happen in this here and now. He says then, focus on your emotions, on being the strongest person within yourself that you can be, When everyone is the best versions of themselves that they can be, the ship will be turned in another direction. And he says, it's actually not everyone. You don't have to have everyone, but just an, like a chunk of people, basically, but not necessarily every single person. And then he wanted to leave one more image of millions of people trying to regulate themselves at the same time and find their balance. And said, no wonder there is chaos, as a new earth is birthed from this. Make no mistake, there will be a new earth from this. Everyone focus on the best outcome, as well as perfecting themselves on their individual journeys will help the new reality come together much more smoothly. This is all for now. Thank you for listening to this reading.